Hello, good morning, guys. Today we are going to discuss about a topic called Ansible, and we are going to use Ansible in uh, Azure Cloud. So Azure Cloud, we are going to create a few VM machines, and practically we are going to see how we can automatically start and stop all our VMs, which are actually created in Azure using Ansible. So we will see the power of Ansible. So this is highly important uh, as running a running heavy machines in Azure costs a lot. So as long as the machines are on, depending upon the configuration of the machine, if it is having lot of CPU power, if it is having lot of memory and other GPU units, so on. So the as it is the cost of running the machine increases, so it becomes smart uh, decision to actually stop the machines if those VMs are not being used. So one way of actually auto starting and stopping our VMs are in Azure can be done using Ansible. Okay, so we will look into a case study. We will actually this particular case study, and we'll actually run um, and see practically how we can actually auto start and stop Azure using Ansible. Okay, so first we'll have a quick introduction of Ansible for guys who don't know what is Ansible. Okay, so Ansible is it is official definition of Ansible you can actually find in the link below. So as Ansible is a radically simple IT automation engine that automates cloud provisioning, configuration management, application deployment, ITRA, service orchestration, and many other IT needs. So you can do whatever we manually do, like deployment, starting machines, stopping machines, deploying different software inside the machine, configuring the machine. So all those things, what we do manually, right, can everything can be done via Ansible. So we can quickly go to this particular link. We can open this link, and this is the link which is official website of Ansible, and you can go deeper and deeper and understand about Ansible. So today we are going to introduce about Ansible. We are going to configure Ansible using SSH key. The main power of Ansible comes via SSH. Okay, so SSH using SSH, Ansible actually can remotely connect to any machine. Once it is able to connect to remote machine, it can actually configure the machine as per our needs. Okay, so SSH key is basically SSH the is the tool which Ansible internally use for all its all its functionalities. Okay, now let's come to next slide. So what are the different features of Ansible? So we are going to discuss only the main features of Ansible. Like Ansible, to run basic Ansible, we use something called Ansible playbook. So inside the Ansible playbook, we will be going to use Ansible modules. Okay, Ansible playbook in our case is nothing but a simple YML, and that particular YML contains all the tasks which needs to be executed. Okay, so we have to just write a YML, and all the tasks that needs to be executed should be written in that YML. And we will write a Ansible module, and basically in this case we'll be writing a Azure module for Ansible. Okay, Azure module for Ansible. So these are the steps that we are going to do. Okay. Now coming to Azure. So what is Azure? Azure basically is a cloud provider. It's from Microsoft, and it has we are going to touch few of the services of Azure. Azure provides a lot of services, out of which for our demo purpose, we are going to touch few of the services, out of which is a virtual machines. We are going to create one particular virtual machines, assuming that that particular virtual machine is very heavy, and we don't want to put it on for a long time, and we want to start and stop that particular virtual machine. Okay, so that is the use case that we are going to do. We are going to create a virtual machine inside a resource group. So all the services in Azure can be actually grouped together something into something called Azure resources, and we will be using something called service principals to authorize our Ansible to connect to the Azure Virtual Machine instance and start and stop it. So that's what we are going to do. Okay. Now let's jump into the uh, implementation part. Okay, so first of all, we'll go to a Azure machine. So I will log into my uh, Azure portal. I am in my Azure portal. I have created a resource group. I have just called it as a test group. Okay, we can actually create as many resources as we want. So by clicking on this create button, we just need to create a resource group by just typing the type group name. Let's suppose we create the the group called demo for now. So we'll create a group called demo, and we'll just say next. Okay. Now we are going to create a group now. Once we create a group called um, demo, we'll go inside this particular demo. And here inside this is a resource group, and we are going to create um, we are going to create a machine, virtual machine. So to create a virtual machine, we'll just go and click on this particular create, and we will say we'll select Ubuntu group. For now, for demo purpose, we'll create some random machine, Ubuntu machine, and we'll give it a name. We'll say like heavy machine. Suppose it is, we'll say that it is a heavy machine. So that's it. So here so we'll create a new key pair, and it will be automatically downloading to our in our laptop. Okay, so just click on review and create, and hopefully download the it will just download the private key, which can be used to logging into the virtual machine. Okay, now so let's click on create. So validation is done. Now it says me like whether you want to download the private key. Yes, I will just download the private key. Now after downloading the private key, so you can see that my private key is getting downloaded, which is heavy machine underscore dot pem. This private key can be used to connect to our virtual machine. Okay. So here we are going to create our Azure machine, um, virtual machines, and those machines should be able to connect also. So let's verify whether we are able to connect to that particular virtual machine or not. So let the deployment happen. Now deployment has completed. Uh, so it is creating some resources, demo vnet, heavy machine.nsg, heavy machines.ip, and so on. Deployment is in progress actually, so it will take some few more seconds to complete. So once the deployment is done, we'll see that deployment is finished. Okay, so once the deployment is finished, we'll try to connect to that particular machine. We'll be seeing we'll be using ssh command to connect to that particular machine. Okay, we have already got this particular download key heavy machine.pem, which is in downloads folder. So we need to change the permissions of permissions of this particular key to 400. That is mandatory. So we'll go ahead and change the permissions. To change the permissions, we'll use command chmod, 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 and that key is actually there in downloads. Chmod 400, and the key is there in downloads and heavy machine.pm. So I have changed the permission of the pm file. Now I will use this pm file to connect to that machine to verify that I am able to connect to that machine or not. Now the deployment is done. I will be using this pm. I will use the command. The command Azure actually provides a command which can be used to connect. So this is the command they actually use to connect to the machine. So they say that give me the private key path and you should be able to connect, right? So as simple as I have to give the private key path, which is downloads heavy machine.pm. Okay, and it is asking for confirmation for fingerprint, and there you go. So we are able to successfully able to connect to the machine. So I am inside the Azure. I'm actually inside the heavy machine of which I have created in Azure. So Azure at the rate heavy machine says that I am inside the machine. So now I am successfully able to connect to the machine, get inside the machine. Okay. Now let me come out of the machine. So to come out of the machine, I just type exit. I am outside the machine. Let me clear everything. I come. Okay. Now I am outside the machine. Now I am able to successfully connect to the machine, but I have to configure my machine, uh, to be able to connect to that newly created VM via Ansible. For that, I have to share the SSH keys. Okay, so I have already generated SSH key using command SSH keygen. So there is a command called SSH keygen, which can be used to create SSH key. Okay, so the command is something like this. So we use SSH key minus TRSA minus B4096 and we actually generate the SSH key. I have already generated. Once I click on this, there will be sort of, I'll just have to enter. I will have to just enter OK, and then I will be able to see that I have a SSH private key public key created in a folder called .ssh and IDRSA. Okay, so this one I am able to connect. Okay. Similarly, so these are the files that are created, um, IDRSA pub. So these are the files are actually created as a part of SSH keygen. So I have to copy this public key into the newly created VM. So I have created a new virtual machine in Azure called Heavy Machine, right? So I have to use the SSH command to copy uh, the public key into the virtual machine of Azure. Okay, so to do that, I just need to have I actually use I have already have a handy copy command. Okay, so I'll just use this command. What actually this does is it copies the private key, it copies the public key, uh, RSA pub from my local machine into the newly created VM. So this is what I am going to use. Okay, so let me, because IP address has changed, let me correct it actually. So the IP address of the new machine is this. So I will use this particular machine IP address and do like this. So this command will actually copy my public key ID RSA pub into the Azure machine with IP address 20.232.120.18 and it will authorize that particular key to be able to connect, right? So by this command I should be able to connect to the virtual machine. So now this time I will not use any private key public key. I'll just do SSH. I will just do SSH. I'll not use this PM file. Instead of using this without using this PM file, I should be able to connect to that machine. How will I do is just verify. Let's verify it. Yeah. Okay, so we are able to connect without the PM because we have authorized our locally generated ID as a public key. We have copied our public key into the remote machine, right? So now we are able to successfully connect to our virtual machine without giving any private key. Now this machine is having the credentials. Now the next step is um, let's create a Ansible deployment. Let's first start from scratch how to deploy Ansible here. Okay, so I already have a few commands handy here. So let me open that in the new terminal for you. I'll just go and click on new tab. I'll open it in a new terminal. And here I have few commands. I have install.sh, which actually essentially have scripts to actually install the Ansible. It is simple scripts using pip commands. Okay, so I just open that I can just execute that, but for demo purpose, I am going one by one. So I will not deploy Ansible in my machine directly. Instead, I will create a virtual environment called Ansible. So this particular command will create a virtual environment called Ansible. Now I have created a virtual environment called Ansible, and I am getting inside the virtual environment. I will get inside the virtual environment using this particular command, source command. So I have activated my virtual. I will activate my virtual environment. Okay, so the path is a little bit different. So uh, I have to edit the path. Source path should be slash cloudx. I have something called cloudx. Folder is cloudx. Um, okay, so so on entering the source command, I am activating my virtual environment. I am inside the virtual environment that you can verify by this particular Ansible word. Now I am inside the virtual environment. Whatever I install, whatever packages I install, which will be within this virtual environment only. Now, using this virtual environment, I will actually go on and go ahead and install Ansible. So to install Ansible, it is straightforward. Ansible is basically a Python. It is completely written on Python, so I can just use pip to actually install Ansible. So I have installed Ansible by command pip install Ansible. So once I say pip install Ansible, it will go ahead and install all the Ansible related libraries. So basic libraries of Ansible gets installed. Now Ansible is installed. Let me clear the screen. Now you have Ansible setup, but we need to have some modules related to Azure. Ansible works on modules, right? So we are going to understand about what are Ansible modules. So Ansible modules are nothing but some specific libraries to perform which has functionalities to perform some specific functions. So in this case, we are going to use Azure Ansible specific modules, and using those Azure Ansible specific modules, we are going to connect to Azure, right? So for that, we have um, we have a set of instructions from Azure to actually install Azure modules, right? So this is the link. So on click on this particular link, we will go and see what are all required to actually uh, have Azure modules installed to start and stop a VM. Okay, so now let's see what is actually required. What are the modules required? So here it says that we have an Ansible Galaxy which has a specific set of libraries which are essentially required to actually connect to Azure. Right? We will go ahead and execute this particular command. Okay. Okay. So Ansible is already installed. Okay, so it is already installed. Let's go ahead and install our requirements.txt according to the Azure. So this is a basic module which is actually required to actually connect to Azure and start and stop our VM. Okay, so we'll go ahead and install. Okay, so I think it is better to actually install as a sudo user. So let me do it again. So it is a good practice. So if you log in it as sudo, then we will be having more control over the Ansible will have extra privileges to connect to the Azure machines, right? So I will, instead of doing this, I will actually redo it and connect it via sudo user as root user and do the same steps. Okay. Yeah. So let's do that. Let me do that now. Let me do the steps again using sudo user. So to go to login as sudo user, all you need to do is just login sudo dash. So if you say sudo dash, you are logged in as root. Okay. So you logged in as root, right? Okay, let's see. Let's see. Why do we want to waste our time to actually log in as root? We will log in as Ansible user only. Okay. Now we have installed the Ansible module for Azure. Okay. So now we have as we have installed Ansible module for Azure, all we need to do is run Ansible playbook. So we have Ansible playbook to start and stop the VM. So let's see inside a folder. We have I have already written a YML called Ansible playbook. Okay, so let's see what is there in that particular playbook. So to stop the YML, so I have created a particular. So it is what the name of the Ansible playbook is stop Azure VM, and the uh, tasks that we are going to execute is to stop a VM, and we are going to use the Ansible module called Azure AZ Collections Azure RM virtual machine, and we are going to use some resource groups. So a resource group we have created. So we have created a resource group called uh, we have created a resource group called demo, right? So our resource group is demo. So we have to create an environment variable called demo, and we have to create an environment variable called machine, metaship machine. Okay, metaship machine is not a good word. Let's go ahead and say that Azure machine, VM machine maybe. Okay, so we'll say it as VM machine. So let me start it again. So we have two environment variables, VM machine and Azure resource group machine. Okay, so the way we actually access a environment variable is via this syntax in Ansible. So it is curly braces started with lookup and Ansible built-in environment and the environment variable name. Okay, so this is the way we actually do create. So let's make sure that in our so in our terminal, we will expose that environment variable resource group and name it as demo. Okay. So similarly, we will export the machine name, which we call it at VM machine, right? VM machine equal to the name of the machine. Name of the machine is heavy machine. That's what we have given the name of the machine. So we'll just give the machine name, VM machine name. Okay, so now we have exported both the machine name. Now, what else is missing? Yeah, so now we have to provide credentials to our Ansible. So the credentials are actually should be actually stored in the home folder called .azure, Azure and credentials. Okay, so we will say this is the file we have to create actually. So have a look into it how to create the credentials. So this is the credentials that we folders that we have created. So we have to copy all our credentials inside this particular folder. Inside this particular folder called .azure and inside the file called credentials. So once we create the credentials inside this folder, and this particular file. Next step is to actually assign roles. I have already assigned roles. In this case, we will assign a role service principal. I have created a service principal called Ansible. I will assign this Ansible service principal to our newly created resource group. So this resource group, I will just to assign via console. It's very simple. You just need to go and go on, click on Access Control IAM and add role assignment. And in the add role assignment, you have to access, in this case, I'll make it a contributor. And then I select a particular member, a service principal member called Ansible. So this service principal, yeah, I have already created it. I'm just going to select it. So once I select it, this particular service principal will be assigned to the resource group. Once it is assigned to the resource group, it will also be assigned to all the VMs inside the particular resource pool. It will be inherited from the resource group. Okay. So now we have assigned, I have been once we have given permissions uh, to the service principal, we will use the same service principal Ansible credentials and copy those credentials into this particular folder users uh, our home directory .azure and credentials. Once we copy that, we should be able to log into the Ansible machine, remote machine, and perform all our commands. So all we need to do is like Ansible playbook, Ansible playbook, and our resume stop command. Okay, so we just need to execute this particular command. So we can see that our particular machine, in this case, was in start state. Our machine, heavy machine, was in start state. And now because of executing the command remote Ansible, it is going to stop the virtual machine. You can see the instructions that it is stopping the machines. So it is delocating, and let me refresh it back. After some time, it will actually um, it will start to stop. So from running state, it just uh, went into a stop stage. So it happened because of this particular command stop virtual machine. So once the stop is done, we our Ansible playbook will return with all the statuses, all the gathered facts that he has it got it. So this is what we have got, right? So we were successfully able to stop our virtual machine. So these are the simple steps that we need to use to actually stop a VM. Now, if you want to start a VM, we just need to run the start VM playbook. So I have already written. I'll just give you a glance of um, the start playbook YAML file. So start YAML file has the name start Azure VM. It has task start virtual machine, and it is having the same resource group. It is using the same environment variables which we have exported. And okay, so let us actually, so the virtual machine name is VM machine. Let's name it as VM machine. VM machine. Okay, now to start this particular machine, which is in stopped state, we just need to execute the playbook Azure VM stop. Okay, to start this, we have to use Azure VM start. Okay, so let's do the command. So the command is Ansible playbook, and the playbook name. The playbook name to start is Azure VM start YAML. That's it. So you just need to execute this particular playbook, and it will just go ahead and start the VM. We can verify that by clicking on by seeing the status of in our Azure console. So you can see that it has changed the state from stopped state to starting state, and after some time you can see that it is in starting state. It is in running state. So these are the basic things that we can do, simple things that we can automate. Like we need not manually stop the Azure. We can just write a program which will invoke our Ansible playbooks. And if on some particular case study we identify that we don't in our program we identify that our machine is no longer needed, we just need to run these Ansible playbooks in our code, and it will automatically stop our VM. So we have seen, let's run it again. So it is already in running state. Let's now stop it. To stop it, we just need to run the stop command, Azure playbook stop. So it will just go ahead and stop the VM. So this is the demo of how to start and stop our virtual machines, which is created in Azure cloud. And this is the power of Ansible that we have used. So Ansible has a powerful ecosystem. It has tie up with Azure cloud, and it also has tie up with other clouds also. Hence, we will get many modules which are essentially libraries which can be used by Ansible to work on those particular cloud machines. Okay. Okay, so now I think the stop virtual machine is going on. It will take some more time. Let's wait for some time and just verify that the machine is actually modified its status from running state to stop state. Okay, so here you go. Here you go. So you can see that it is in stop state, and our Ansible playbook command is done. It has written the status. Okay. Cool. So, okay, guys. So we are ending up our demo here. Thank you. I will meet you again with other sessions.